We represent all types of people here at our office and all types of cyclists. We represent commuters, we represent people who just go out and ride recreationally, and we represent folks who are some very accomplished competitive cyclists. This case involves somebody in that category who is a highly nationally ranked master's level cyclist who was living in kind of rural Georgia area, and he was out on a training ride one day, minding his own business, clear day, clear road, and he gets hit from behind by a tractor trailer. Now, this cyclist, being master's level and competitive, obviously spends a lot of time and logs a lot of miles. He could tell and knew that there was a tractor trailer, large vehicle coming from behind him. He moved over and edged over to the right side, just about even with the fog line as best he could, trying to leave as much space as possible for this tractor trailer to pass him. He was heading up a gradual incline, and there was a stop sign at the top of the incline. So no reason for a truck driver to be going excessively fast. And yet this guy came barreling through and unfortunately hit our client as he was almost all the way to the fog line. The truck actually crossed over the fog line, which we were later able to determine through the use of an accident reconstructionist who put together a detailed report of what happened, including a 3D model and animation that we used when we went to the insurance company to try to get the case resolved. A lot of times, when we get experts involved early on in the case, it makes a huge difference because they rely on physical evidence. Physical evidence can disappear if you don't capture it right at the moment. And so when we got our expert out there right in the days following the crash, there were still bits and pieces of broken glass from the tractor trailer, some markings from both the bike as well as the brakes were still out there visible on the road. And the reconstructionist was able to use that and help him to determine just exactly what the angle of impact was, the point of impact, the speed at the time of impact, those sorts of things. We know that, for example, this driver had a clear viewpoint that would have allowed him to see roughly 3,000 feet straight ahead with no obstructions whatsoever prior to the time of impact. If he were going the speed limit, that would give him about 36 seconds where he should have been able to see our client out there on the road. How do you not see someone out there on a bike on a clear road for 36 seconds of driving time when you're driving an 80,000-pound death machine on the highways of our state, right? Carelessness, not paying attention, distracted, who knows exactly what it was. But we know that he didn't see him because he edged right into him, veered off the road, and ran this client over. Now, our client, good guy. He was in great shape, obviously very healthy, but that doesn't help you survive this sort of crash. He was fortunate in the way that it happened in that it didn't kill him. And as he told me when I met with him in his hospital room at Grady, he believed that his helmet, this is not his helmet, but it's a helmet, but he believed that his helmet kept him from suffering any worse injuries than he had, certainly to his skull and to his brain. He did have a skull fracture that was more along the side of his temporal, forehead and mandibular fracture with his jaw. So he had some fractures, orbital fracture around here as well. Also suffered a lumbar, what they call a burst fracture, which is just what it sounds like. It's not like a crack, but it's more like an explosion of one of your vertebrae in his spine. So we required some surgery to deal with that. And required extensive healing to deal with the skull fractures, but he didn't have a traumatic brain injury. And that was very fortunate. And that was something he credited, and I think his doctors credited, to wearing the helmet. Now, we know that the law in Georgia says if you're over the age of 16, you do not need to wear a helmet when you ride a bike. It's a personal choice. I understand some people don't wear helmets and they have their reasons. I'm not judgmental. I'm not critical. I've just seen cases like this where I believe it made a difference to the person's health outcome, which makes me a big fan of wearing helmets. That's why I recommend it. But I understand some people just don't want to wear helmets. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel like they need it. Some studies say that when you wear a helmet, cars actually are more comfortable being closer to you because they feel like you're protected. It's kind of counterintuitive, but there is that to it. So I'm a fan. I encourage people to wear helmets, but I understand if they don't. And frankly, the law doesn't require it. So it should never come up in police investigations, but it always does. So in this particular case, this guy had some significant injuries. The trucking company was not so much arguing about their fault, but they were arguing about how much they should be responsible to have to pay here. Even with these injuries, this is going back several years. Obviously money is money, and even in at the time this case was resolved, a seven-figure settlement's a big deal. But there was enough insurance out there for our client to at least feel like he was recognized, he was made whole. We got him every penny that you could get on this case, and we did that through a combination of things. Number one, we push for our bike clients just like we push for everybody, but particularly with the bike clients, because we know it's an underserved community. Cases don't always get investigated the way that they should. This police report could have been done better, which is why we immediately got an accident reconstructionist to come on in and evaluate this crash and give us the detailed information that was needed in order to push this case over the top in terms of the liability analysis, the mechanism of injury analysis, and exactly what happened to our client. Our client was a very credible person who, like I said, was an athlete himself. He was committed to his rehab. He was not trying to extend his treatment, not trying to do what insurance companies love to point out, where they think that someone is exaggerating their injuries for the purpose of financial gain. They say that they're malingering. There was no argument about that. If anything, this client was back on his bike way sooner than he should have been, primarily because he wanted to get back and train for his competitive and maintain his ranking, which we totally understand. He was also at a master's level where he was just about to enter his first year at the next level up. And he knows that that's your best chance to win some of these races. So he really didn't want to miss out on training there. And so he didn't put his health at risk, but as soon as he was physically able to get back on the bike, he did that. And boy, we understand that I've represented high-level competitive triathletes, high-level cyclists, people who are Olympic-level cyclists, people who ride in some of the biggest events in the world. So I understand the competitive nature. It's one of the things I love about representing racing cyclists is that you know that these folks are not going to overtreat. They're going to get back on the bike as quickly as they can. Sometimes the hardest thing for them is when I encourage them, please stay off Strava. That's the only thing I ask. We just don't need you putting it out there to the world, what's going on with your results and your training. Keep that personal and keep that to yourself. So this was a case where we got a great result for our client. Our client was really satisfied. I was glad to make a new friend and make a new connection. We've stayed in touch ever since. And it's just another example of where I feel like we were able to add value because we understand cyclists, we understand cyclist behavior. We certainly know how to try cases. Insurance companies know that we know how to try cases. And because of that, we're oftentimes able to get better results for our clients than I know some of these other firms can get. It's kind of like a Yogi Berra-ism that we try so many cases that we don't get to try cases anymore. You know, like that restaurant's so popular that no one wants to eat there anymore. But there's some truth to it in that we've gotten great results by trying cases. Insurance companies know we're willing to do it, so they don't make us test them so much as they used to when we were establishing ourselves as lawyers. Now they know we're going to tag them, so it's easier for us to get great results for our clients without having to go to that extent. So I hope this was helpful and let you understand the way that we approach cases, even when they appear to be clear liability. We don't take chances. We prepare for battle, and more often than not, that helps us avoid battle.